All right, this is Heavy Radio episode 8, coming at you live here, back at it again, down here in Austin, Texas. We're without Marco today, but we have guest host Jeremy Hall is back. Jeremy, how you doing, man?
Back from episode 5.
Yep. And we have special guest Jake Luddington. Jake, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well.
Yep. So, we're going to kick things off here with some news as we do. Let's see what we got. As you guys know, there's not a ton of stuff going on with in 2020 for music news. We do have some fun things here for you guys. Let's see here. So first story I picked up is from Consequence of Sound. Bruce Dickinson of Iron Maiden did an interview with them, and he said that, quote, they are never going to fucking retire. So I like to sing that as a news story title.
So far they have not.
No.
I'm glad to hear
Definitely.
that, because after every album I ask myself, is this going to be the last one?
Right. Yep, and they keep rocking them, and I've really dug their last couple, so it's just good to know Iron Maiden have no intention of slowing down, so some happy metal news for us.
Awesome.
Let's see. Next one up I got here, I don't know if you guys are big fans of Bill and Ted.
Oh, yeah.
Growing up.
Excellent.
Hell yeah. Well, they have, I don't know if you've heard, they have the third movie coming up, Face the Music. And they just released the soundtrack listing, and they got some heavy hitters in here. They got some Lamb of God, Mastodon, Animals as Leaders. And they got the full list here. I got this from Metal Injection. And so it looks pretty rad. I don't know if you guys ever listen to the original soundtracks back in the day from the first couple?
That sounds like they've definitely evolved their musical taste over time, because I feel like it was more hair metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, from the first one, I remember the standout, I think, was, did Bullet Boys do a cover of Rock Candy on that?
I think that might be right.
I think
that sounds
I think
right.
that's the standout from the first one, and then the Megadeth song on the second one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go to Hell, I think.
Yep, that's what it was. Yeah, I just read. I think David Elfson just posted something recently on Instagram about filming that video. So I guess the second movie was supposed to be called Go to Hell, but then they changed it to Bogus Journey.
That's right.
So
Yeah, I remember that.
a lighter-hearted title.
I remember seeing
But,
some pictures on the internet when they were filming the third one, and of course Keanu Reeves is fresh off of John Wick 3 doing that, and he's walking next to, I don't remember the other guy's name, but he's a pretty short guy, and Keanu,
Yeah.
and you've got basically John Wick walking next to him. It didn't
Yeah.
really, it was hard to
Alex
pretend,
Winter. Yep.
you know. Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the original soundtrack, and there's like an Extreme song on there. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, Do You Want to Play, I think, or
Yeah.
Play With Me.
Tora Tora. Tora Tora has a song on there. Like, so it's like that's a big departure, going to Lamb of God and Mastodon.
We're getting serious.
Hell yeah. I guess Animals as Leaders co-wrote, because like the band that they are in the movie is called Wild Stallions,
Right.
and Animals as Leaders, I guess, is playing on one of the Wild Stallions tracks, so that's pretty cool.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm excited for it. I guess it comes out just over a week from now, and they're doing the video on demand thing because obviously the theaters aren't running. So I'm excited. I'll be ready for it.
Yeah, I've been waiting for that to pop up. I thought it'd be on demand. That's good to hear.
Hell yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to come out like Memorial Day or something, and then they pushed it back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. That's cool.
We won't have George Carlin for this one, though.
No.
Right.
That's a bummer.
I guess they have a Mastodon song, I think, is about Rufus. So it's like a Rufus tribute, looks
Oh,
like.
awesome. I can't wait to hear that.
So hell yeah. Those are all things I like. Yeah, the next story came through Loudwire. I've seen it everywhere. Pete Way, one of the founding members of UFO, has passed away at age 69. Pete Way has a huge influence on metal industry, and a lot of metal bands, a lot of household names grew up on listening to UFO. Um, I know myself personally, huge UFO fan. Got into them in high school. Um, but yeah, super influential. Do you guys ever listen to UFO much growing up, or any of his other bands? I guess he was in Fastway and Wasted also.
Yeah, some UFO. UFO is one of those bands that on paper I would have listened to them a lot more, but I just didn't cross paths with them that
Mm-hmm.
much. But whenever I did, I enjoyed it, and they're always one of those bands I wanted to go back to more. But I find myself putting on the Strangers in the Night album from time to time because that one's awesome, and that's the one people always mention. And I
Mm-hmm.
found it at a record store for like $4 one time, so I just go
Oh, right
just
on.
go and put that on. Wasted, I never really listened to. I loved the first Fastaway album, and in doing some reading after hearing about him passing, learned that he left before they even recorded it. And I was like, oh,
Oh,
I was
really?
like, oh, that's a bummer. So,
Yeah, because Fastway was great.
yeah, the first three, through the Trick or Treat stuff, I loved them, and then I kind of my it tastes went elsewhere, and then by the time I came back, like they were gone, and I don't know much about that era, but yeah, that's a bummer. Got to I got to
Yep, yep.
well, Dark Mirror in one of the incarnations of Dark Mirror got to open for UFO in Des Moines at Peoples,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
and that was something.
Yeah, I remember Mark calling me about that gig, and I was super jealous. I was out in LA at the time, and yeah, he called me and said they're opening for you guys are opening for UFO, and I was like, son of a bitch.
Yeah,
I was so happy for you guys. But
I'm
yeah,
like, well,
that's rad.
whatever happens from here, I can say I opened for UFO.
Yeah, yeah, no kid, man. So yeah, so hugely influential player. Sorry to hear about the news, but the music will live on, of course. So I know you guys out there, if you haven't listened to UFO, definitely check them out or any of the other projects Pete Way played on. So rock on. Let's see. Then it's crazy to think about live shows at the moment, but for Bloodstock 2021, Merciful Fate has been confirmed for Saturday night's closing band. So they'll be the headliner for Saturday, which will make them joint of headliners. They're gonna have Judas Priest and Devin Townsend. So Merciful Fate will be closing Saturday night for Bloodstock.
Nice.
So that's pretty rad. So I know they were thinking about playing together or had been playing together, but I've seen King Diamond, but to actually see Merciful Fate would be pretty kick ass.
And that's a strong lineup.
Yeah, no kidding. I wish I could get to it. So 2021 seems like a far way away, but I guess it's not so much anymore. This year's been flying by, as I'm sure you guys know. Um, but yeah, so that's the news updates I found. Um, Aside from that, there's just too many to really list, but seems like a lot of musicians we're all digging are recording right now. So I know, like I saw, like Lizzie Hale from Hailstorm said she's working on stuff. Like that was just today, but every time I check out the news, there's just like a ton of bands writing. So that gives me hope for 2021. So kind of offset some of the other not so rad news. So be excited for the new music next year.
Yeah.
But so I want to go to our next section. Just kind of talk to you, Jake, and since we were just kind of chatting in the beginning, wanted to circle back and just kind of ask you. So basically, well, I guess Jeremy, if you want to say how you met Jake and how you guys got to know each other, and then we can kind of roll in Jake. What you've done with your life in music and kind of your story a little bit.
Sure.
I don't even know how did we meet, like grade school, but like
Yeah.
I don't remember a specific memory about that.
Yeah, as far back as my mind goes, it just goes back to we lived almost across the street from each other, and I don't know if it was just
Mm.
proximity there. I mean, that was back in grade school, or maybe,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I feel like our original connection was through Matt Long because he was like the guy that had all the music because he had an older brother.
yeah, yep. If Matt was involved, then that would have been it. Yeah, because I moved here and then became friends with Matt, and then everybody else I know kind of sprung from that.
Yeah, yeah, that was kind of he was sort of the touchstone for a lot of us, I
Yeah,
think.
but yeah, we graduated from the same high school. I'll just go back to say it was in the '90s,
Mm-hmm.
and 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 lived near each other. Ended up playing in some high school bands in different formats over the years. Actually, Jake's brother was even involved in some of that. His younger brother,
Yep.
and that was a good time. And then we went our separate ways and did our adult growing up, and then I contacted him for something like job related, and I don't know, we'll get into that. And I think it was, if I had to guess, it was probably 2003. I was trying to think of that because I don't think my
Mm-hmm.
daughter was born yet. She was born in '04. And
Yeah, I feel like that was like I think I was living in Seattle at the time, but yeah,
okay,
yeah. So it would maybe 2004,
yeah.
2005, maybe.
And I think during that conversation, it came up, or someone told me in passing sometime, that once upon a time in probably the late '90s, I guess, that he owned a live venue in Des Moines, which I was not at all aware of and wasn't involved in the live music scene really at that time. But I'm like, wait, what? He owned it? It's like, yeah, yeah, and booked bands. And I'm like, really? So when Heavy Radio came about, I'm like, well, this would be a good time to maybe chat with him and get some of the details, because there's got to be a story in there. And it's been long enough, Who,
Yeah, like 20
whose
years,
feathers
20
are we going to
plus years.
ruffle at this point? So, so
All
yeah.
right. Yeah. Yeah, Jake, how'd that come to be?
Um, is I don't even remember. I was actually looking for a place that I wanted to have a venue, and the Safari Club had been around for a long time, and it had been more of a like reggae, and then kind of evolved into metal, and Sean Cran, who's clown from Slipknot,
Mm-hmm.
was the like ended up with the bar. I don't remember like how, and he was wanting to get out of the bar to focus on having a band that turned out to be somewhat popular,
Yeah.
and
Those guys have done all right.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
they've
yeah,
done pretty
they've
good.
done all right, and so like it happened to be that the timing lined up that I took over the bar from him, and
Mm-hmm.
then for me it was really about there was not a like lineup of shows happening in Des Moines that were really like what I wanted to see, and so I did some research, and I was like, the best way to actually make that happen is not to try to go out and be a promoter, because you don't really make a ton of money as a promoter necessarily, unless you can book like Metallica level bands into like the Wells Fargo Center or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a
And
promoter,
so owning,
even if you're a promoter, you still have to have a place for these bands to play. And if there's nowhere around that
yeah,
really does it, you're a promoter with no venue.
yeah. So I was like, owning the venue, and the other part is owning the venue. Then you're also making the money on the liquor sales and everything else. So
Mm-hmm.
there's fewer people cut in on the deal, and so which allowed me to be able to like kind of have more flexibility in picking like the types of bands that I would have come through. So it really became about like what did I want to see, like probably like if you want a really interesting example. So I had during I can't remember what year that was, because I owned it from would have been 97 to 99, so only 2 years. But
Mm-hmm.
there was a Ozfest one of those years that Incubus and System of a Down were on the Ozfest side stage bill. They weren't big yet.
Mm-hmm.
And on an off day coming through Des Moines, Snot headlined, and Incubus and System of a Down opened up for them. And I actually lost money on that show because nobody knew who the heck they were yet. So,
Really? That's
I
crazy.
mean, I didn't lose a ton of money, like $100, but still,
Yeah.
like the fact that you look at that caliber of bands and like
Right.
no one had heard of them, and so nobody showed up is it's kind of hard to believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably crazy to see them too when they were um, really getting their footing, to see those bands.
I would argue they were better then, but
Right on. Yeah, I bet the energy level was crazy. That's rad. That's rad. Cool. Yeah, I was gonna ask you. So like somewhere, obviously there's some rad highlights there. Do you have any other like some really big memories from owning that club, or any other thing that comes to mind?
I have so many memories that the music scene at that
Fun.
time in Des Moines, and I'm sure it's great now. It's just I'm very disconnected from what's happening in Des Moines, but it felt like the music scene at that time was in sort of this unique place where all of a sudden there was a whole lot of attention on Des Moines, particularly as Slipknot was emerging, and like I did their label showcase show at my bar. So like
Cool.
Ross Robinson was at my bar, and
Mm-hmm.
John Ross, who's like Guns N' Roses manager, and some
Mm-hmm.
other folks. And so it was really kind of surreal, like just the amount of attention that was happening. And there was also like, there was drama within the music scene because Corey left Stone Sour and joined them, and so then
Mm-hmm.
there was all this like bifurcation of people, and like for a period of time, and I was seeing it like every day because the people were always at the bar and I was talking about it. I'm sure it wasn't really as dramatic as it seemed, but like I felt like I was living in this like music soap opera a little bit of the time.
Uh-huh. Yeah. No, it's a lot of big things were happening. I'm sure there was a lot of energy in the air, and just um, I'm sure everyone could feel that something was going to happen. So that's really cool.
I can't imagine
That's rad,
Ross Robinson in Des Moines.
right?
He
Get some
probably couldn't. He probably couldn't imagine himself in Des Moines either. But
he
get some tasty tacos, man.
he tells that story, at least back then, a little differently. There's words like shithole and what am I doing here, and, and things like that. But it worked out in the end.
it did work out
Uh-huh.
in the end. Well, the I think also the follow on to that was like he produced At the Drive-In's album because of Paul Gray from Slipknot.
Oh, right on.
Because he made the intro because Paul loved At the Drive-In, and they were like one of the most intense shows I ever saw. Like that show is probably one that sticks out in my mind pre Ross Robinson of being like one of the greatest live shows I've ever seen was at the Drive-In at Safari Club.
That's awesome. That's crazy. Yeah. That kind of bleeds into my next question. I was gonna ask what you guys' thoughts on um, the current live scene. Obviously, things have kind of changed in general over the last years, but also with everything that's happening this year. Kind of want to get you guys' take on I guess the live scene now. Obviously, where it's very different, but kind of what it's going to be like going forward, and even the changes that have been happening leading up to 2020, and I guess what you guys see for live music.
So at least where I'm at in Santa Cruz, because there's a University of California school here. There's a lot of bands that come through, and so I still like I could every night of the week be it like have my choice of shows that I wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think and that was actually like for me like just kind of like tying in the point about like what I liked about music in Des Moines was 80 and 35 meet in Des Moines, so every band on the planet has to go through there.
Right.
And they may not stop, but like at a minimum, it's a potential like gas money stop for touring bands because it's an easy day trip to much larger cities.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Definitely.
I think music scenes, it's easier to build a music scene in a place where that like people have to pass through, and so like here in Santa Cruz, that's definitely the case because it's a stop people want to make because there's a bunch of college kids here who will go drink some beer
Mm-hmm.
and watch a band.
True. Yeah, we here in Austin, it's like every night of the week there's like tons of style. You can see almost every style every night of the week somewhere. So it's cool. We have seen some venues. Sounds like they will be shutting down. And then even before everything happened this year, we had some venues that were going to shut down. But it seems like on a much more positive note, it seems like everybody's really energized to help the music scene here. There's definitely like a vested interest in funding it, which is cool. Um, I think people still, at least from what I see here, people still want to get out and go to shows. I've been out of the Des Moines scene for a while. Jeremy, I don't know what you've seen back home in Des Moines, but here are still some people trying to get out and support musicians, whereas sometimes I saw it go up and down maybe in back home in Iowa.
Yeah, pre all the COVID stuff, it feels like it was on the rise. With venues like Woolies coming to town and drawing some more, stuff like touring bands that stop in between Chicago and Denver, or Minneapolis
Mm-hmm.
and Kansas City. Been grabbing more bands that I used to have to drive to Omaha to see, or places like that. Um, the the local scene, I mean, venues are of course going to have a hard time with the shutdowns and everything. There's not really much happening around here, because of all of that, and I don't know who's going to come back from it and who won't. The only hope I have as a customer of all those is I hope it pushes them to try a little bit harder, because like what Jake mentioned, I think Des Moines it is a key stop along the way, and a lot of those bands just drive on through and they don't stop. And I think they don't
Mm-hmm.
stop because there's not a lot of people to play in front of, is what they've seen, and that's what I see when I go to these places. And I'm part of the problem because I don't participate in the local scene as much as I should. But I blame it on the venues going, they don't really give me a reason to come out there on a Tuesday when Carcass isn't in Des Moines. Well, why do I
Mm-hmm.
want to go hang out there? What do you have here? Make it a fun spot on the off nights and build clientele. So when the shows come to town, you've got all your regulars plus the people that just come out for the shows. Um,
Mm-hmm.
at my age, I'm looking for something to do in the evenings. I'm not dealing with kids at home anymore or anything like that. My wife wants to go to bed because she's up early doing something great. I'd rather go out and do something. But if there's nothing to go
Right.
do, there's all the trivia you can handle, but none of these none of these late night spots want to cater to the music crowd unless there's a band on stage, and the bands aren't going to be on stage if there's not a music crowd. So it's kind of like you got to just get them there. Do metal trivia. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
something to start getting people hanging at these places, and then I think the bands will come. And
I
Mm-hmm.
think that's interesting because I think that's the same challenge that existed back when I had a bar, is that trying to build a consistent clientele that would come no matter what,
right,
it was tricky. And I think partially that's because Des Moines is still a small enough place that the people that are into any one genre are not like a critical mass that are all gonna like. You don't have like a true punk rock bar or a true metal bar, or back when I was doing shows, it was like ska was a thing, and so there were like there were some kids that were big into ska, and
hmm
but like all of those people, kind of the commonality was they were all like genre nuts about a specific style of music, and so they would all come to each other's shows because they knew that there wasn't an alternative where they could just only go focus on their own genre, and so I think that is still Des Moines' challenge. Is it's quite like size wise, I think it's not quite big enough to support a like metal only bar or
yeah,
whatever.
yep, I could see
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah. No, I think I'm pretty hopeful. I've just we've here in Austin. There's definitely been a lot of worry about some of the venues closing, and I know that I find a lot of new bands just straight up from social media and everything. But I think there's still, I find, is nothing like actually being um, at the venue with the band, with other fans, enjoying that music live. And I think that that's something just can't be replicated. And so that for that reason, I feel hopeful. And I've seen signs that our local government here is even trying to help the situation by trying to subsidize housing for artists and help artists with healthcare and try and keep some of these venues alive for just to have places of art in the city. So I do have hope for it, and I'm hopeful for 2021. I know for one, from even just for myself, like I can't wait to go play shows and stuff. So I'm writing music, but actually getting out to play it for people is just a completely different thing. So um,
Is Austin actually doing shows right now?
no, everything
No.
is we're completely locked down here. So yeah, it's us in Florida and well, yeah, and California just getting really hit bad. So yeah, they shut everything down here. I've seen hints of people trying to do socially distanced concerts in part of the country, but they're not even doing that here. Like everything's just it's locked down. So we might even get further lockdown, but we'll see. But
Yeah, I've
yeah,
seen a
nothing's
couple
going.
like in Iowa. I've seen a couple of people talk about they were going to do some patio shows. I don't know if that's like if the hurricane that passed through is preventing that
Yeah,
now,
when that happened,
but
Be standing
right?
only on the patios. I don't think there's any patio furniture in the state anymore. It could all landed in Illinois.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what we decide to do here, but everything's pretty much locked
Yeah,
down. But
when they
um,
do allow them, and it feels safe, I'll get out there and try to support them. We talked about it episode 5, buying merch from places like that to help them out
yep.
in times like this. The small venues are certainly the most important because that's where everybody starts out who performs anything has to go to the small places, and just
Mm-hmm.
from seeing shows, I mean, the best shows I ever saw were in small venues. The best Iron Maiden show I ever saw was Bruce Dickinson at the House of Blues in Chicago in
That's right.
'97 on the Accident of Birth tour. And the House of Blues is not small. That's not what we're talking about. But Iron Maiden's huge, so it's
Mm-hmm.
relative. But I've seen Trans Siberian Orchestra a couple times, and I don't really tell anybody about it, but I tell everybody about standing next to Chris Caffery when he filled in with Metal Church at the Vaudeville Muse in Des Moines, and I got to
Mm-hmm.
talk to him there, you know. So and that only happens in a small venue. You're not going to bump into anyone from
Yeah.
TSO at the Enormo Dome who
Right.
gets the reference. It's those small venues where you're going to bump into people, and that's every show where I've bumped into Anders from In Flames or some of the guys from Opeth. It's in these tiny places in Omaha, Nebraska. You're at the bar next door
Mm-hmm.
trying to get something to eat, and in walks the band. And that doesn't happen at the big places. The big places are going to be fine. When you've got 15,000 people that want to pay to see something, they'll find a place to put them. It's those little
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
places. So do what you can.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there'll be I'll speak for myself anyway. I think I've found a new appreciation for it, for everything, and making sure I actually make that support. Like, because I've been at shows and I've seen bands with merch or um, things like that, and I don't actually take the time always to pick up a shirt. But I think after all this, I think I will kind of be. I'm definitely gonna be more conscientious of. Well, this is really cool. We all get to be together and watch this band play and drink a beer. Like, this is awesome. So I'm looking forward to uh, next year. Things get a little bit better. Uh, but awesome. Yeah, thanks for coming on the show, Jake. So appreciate you stopping by, and I'm sure there's more crazy stories for another time.
We'll have to do a part two
Oh,
Um,
later.
that's
yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to swing over to our final section for the show and um, talk some music tracks. Um, and usually, what we do for our first time listeners, we pick out 5 tracks for the week, stuff we're rocking and headbanging to. So Jake, since you're our guest for the week, would you like to start off with your first track?
Sure. And I've kind of got a through line a little bit for
Okay.
the 3 old tracks that I selected. Is that Martin Birch passed away? I think that was it on Monday.
Yeah.
Mm,
Producer and engineer of what I would argue are probably Iron Maiden's best albums. But
mm-hmm.
I think after Fear of the Dark, things maybe are not as solid for me, but still good that they're out there making music. But
Mm-hmm.
the thing that was interesting to me about looking at the songs that from bands where he produced the album is that there's actually a lot of similarity in the sound. I mean, like much like we were talking about Ross Robinson earlier, and you could definitely hear a distinctive, production fingerprint that he kind of puts on the albums that he does. It hadn't really ever connected for me that Martin Birch actually has a similar kind of thing, and so Black Sabbath's song "Falling Off the Edge of the World" is one that for me is an amazing song, but it sounds like it could have been an Iron Maiden song in many respects because of the way
Mm-hmm.
the bass line sounds. And there's a guitar riff that, to me, I feel like it maybe sounds like the instrumental part of Rime of the Ancient Mariner a little bit. And
Okay.
but it's also, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's a killer stand on its own. I'm trying to remember if that was the first album that Dio did
That was on Mob
with
Rules. That was the second one.
yeah, Mob Rule. So that was the second one. Um, but yeah. So that sound that Martin Birch brings to music for me is something that like I have consistently loved, and
Mm-hmm.
that particular song, it's a it's got a nice progression. It's got an instrumental opening, and goes in and gets heavy. And
Yeah, no, those albums still today, all these years later, still sound huge and dynamic, and you can hear everybody in the band and just energy and all still comes through. So hell yeah.
I'd like to know kind of what hand he had in the production on some of that stuff. That honestly, that's the podcast I want to hear. I want to hear producers talking about what they did
Mm-hmm.
on these albums, because the producer term's vague, and you look it up and you get an
yeah,
understanding of it. And even if you know what it is, it's vague per band. Some bands need it in some areas, some whatever. But that is a crushing song. I just love that one. I think that song has one of the most unique vocal melodies to me. The way that he sings those lyrics, it's one of those things where if you listen to that by itself and then you listen to the riffs by itself, it's like, how do these even fit over one another? And you listen to it and it's perfect. I'm just engaged listening to him talk about that. And
It's magic of
I've been
Dio.
listening to
well, for me, the other thing about that song is it doesn't sound like a Dio song.
mm-mm.
Like a lot of the songs that Black Sabbath did with Dio sounded like some version of Rainbow and Dio together.
Yeah, it sounds like it's
And
from the days of yore, and that
yeah,
song couldn't sound more current. I've been listening to that one too, and I cut some lyrics out of it and send it to a friend of mine, and after all this wind that blew through our state, and it was, you think you're safe, but you're wrong. We are falling off the edge of the world, as my cousins sending me a text going, here we are in the middle of a pandemic getting ready for a hurricane. She lives in North Carolina, with the side of rioting, and then a week later they had an earthquake.
yeah,
So,
who expects an earthquake in North Carolina?
right. So yeah, look out.
That makes about as much sense as a hurricane in Iowa.
hmm One of those land hurricanes. This one had its driver's
Yeah.
license.
Jeremy, what's your first classic pick for the week, sir?
I picked kind of a strange one for the playlist so far. I went back to 2012, which I don't. It's old, but it's not that old. To the first Tremonti album, and
Okay.
the opening song, "All I Was." People might know Tremonti from Creed. I wasn't really a
Mm-hmm.
Creed fan. They might know him from Alter Bridge. I like Alter Bridge. I saw him live. I don't really consider myself a huge fan of theirs. I like their stuff. And then his solo band, just Tremonti, came out, where he's the guitar, he's the vocals. They do have another guitar player, Eric Friedman, who's awesome. Um, but I super dug these albums and didn't discover them until maybe 2 years ago. Didn't know anything about them, and I heard that
Mm-hmm.
they were out there, and his band came through town, and I'm like, and a friend of mine was like, "Oh, we got to go see Tremonti," and I'm like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah," and he was on the cover of all the guitar magazines for all the years that I wanted the guys I liked to still be on the cover. So I didn't really
Mm-hmm.
pay any attention to him, and we went and saw him at Seven Flags, and got to meet the whole band. They hung out at the merch table. Got to shake his hand. The guy has a Grammy, um,
Mm-hmm.
and it was one of the best shows I've seen in a long, long time. And I challenge people to find prolific as a musician as that dude is. I've just kind of absorbed all of his stuff in the last couple of years, and I'm a big fan of those albums. So if you haven't given him a chance, check out the first Tremonti album.
Right on. Yeah, I've known Alter Bridge, of course, Creed, but yeah, I've never listened to the Tremonti records, but yeah, I'll check it
Yeah,
out on your
there's
recommendation.
four of them
Have they
now.
have they improved the sound? Have they improved the sound of the Seven Flags venue? Because that used to be like one of the most horrible sounding venues in the area.
Yeah, I don't enjoy it. It sounds like an airplane hangar. There's a place in Iowa
Yeah,
City
it's so
that
big
sounds
and open.
familiar.
Sorry.
I mean, it sounds like that it used to be a tennis court, which is what it
Yeah,
was. Like,
yeah. You might as well have
Yeah.
left the nets up. That's not going to hinder or help.
Um, my classic track, first one is it came through on just um, my shuffle radio is Marilyn Manson's Dope Show, and I picked it just because um, I had heard it not too long ago too at Target of all places. It came through, and
They were playing Dope Show at Target.
yeah,
That's awesome.
I'm pretty sure, but it came through. Um, but yeah, just like I hadn't listened to it in for so long, and it just kind of how modern it still sounds, which is cool. And when it first came out, I would have been like middle school to high school area, and I didn't know as much other music. I was still like laser focused on like the big four, and those were my bands I was listening to. So I hadn't really discovered like David Bowie or Alice Cooper yet. And so hearing the song now, 20-ish years on, um, I was surprised how much those influences come out in that music and how modern it sounds. So um, it's one of those songs we've all heard a zillion times, but kind of to take a step back from it and then go back to listen to it, it was pretty cool. So um, any of you listeners that weren't around for the Marilyn Manson years when he was like the guy, definitely go check that song out.
I consider myself in that era. That that whole genre missed me, um, and that's something I need to go back and give it a try. I haven't given that era a try.
Those first couple albums from Marilyn Manson were definitely like they were genre defining there for a little while.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I was doing then. I remember some of that stuff coming out. It feels like that was the tail end of MTV, and it just started getting a bit strange, and I wasn't ready for it. So I was just stuck my head back into whatever I was doing and kind of ignored it. So I'm not going to stand here and say I didn't like it. I didn't like it immediately, but I haven't listened to more than two Marilyn Manson songs in a row, ever. So that's something I need to give a try.
There's a shift. Yeah, so it's cool, man. Time capsule. Jake, what's your next pick, sir?
So my next one, I picked it to tie into what we were talking about with UFO. So I picked Michael Schenker Group's "Assault Attack," which is the title track from the album
Hell
Assault
yeah.
Attack, which is Martin Birch also produced and engineered that album. And if you listen back to that, there you could hear kind of that similar through line of similar bass line and guitar tone that which Michael Schenker is not known for having a guitar tone that would sound like anything out of Iron Maiden, but that album and that track in particular, I was like, this like, did he just sort of have this like you need to sound like Steve Harris or
Right. Yeah, man. No, that song still kicks so much ass. Yeah, that's one I gotta crank loud as shit, and then also gets like speeding tickets when I listen to it in the car. So it's one of those songs.
I think Mark.
It was funny because I was looking up that particular track and like the YouTube video that came up first. The first comment is, "I don't normally listen to Michael Schenker in the morning, but when I do, so do my neighbors."
Yep, exactly. Hell yeah.
Awesome. I think Martin Birch is a rhythm sections producer. I would think bass players and drummers would dig what he does.
Mm-hmm.
My
Hell yeah.
my next one is a cover. I chose Blue Oyster Cult song "Burning for You," covered by Iced Earth.
Right
I
on.
don't.
I didn't know they did that.
Yeah, they had an album called "Tribute to the Gods" where they did. Well, we're gonna have to run through this because you're gonna want to listen to this. So side tangent. It's all
That's all I'm here for.
Yeah, it's all covers. It came out in 2001, and they do "Creatures of the Night," "The Number of the Beast," "Highway to Hell," "Burning for You," "God of Thunder," "Screaming for Vengeance," "Dead Babies," "Cities on Flame," "It's a Long Way to the Top," "Black Sabbath," the song "Black
Wow.
Sabbath." That's ambitious, and then "Hallowed Be Thy Name." All his covers,
Wow.
Awesome.
and then
Those are good tracks.
that if you hate Iced Earth, just go listen to those songs by the original bands, and you're gonna have a hard time finding a better use for an hour. But
That's a good mix. Good
yeah,
playlist.
as covers go, they're "Burning for You," kind of giving it a modern guitar sound. That song's got
Mm-hmm.
just awesome hooks to it. I love the vocals to it. It's a fun one. "Burning for You."
I'm surprised somebody hasn't re-mainstreamed that song by doing a re-record because that's one that would totally work right
It's
now.
timeless, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It's super catchy. Let's see, my next old school pick, just from a few years back, but it's a band called Hellfire, and the song is called Wheels of Fate. They're definitely a band that's keeping the new wave of traditional heavy metal going. I caught these guys when their new songs Mania came on my playlist, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" So, um, they're I'd say of new bands, it's rare for me to actually get like the hairs on my arm to like stand up because of how much I'm like just love a song, and these guys do it, especially with this track. So definitely go check out Hellfire if you haven't yet. But the song is Wheels of Fate, kicks ass.
I'm not familiar with that one. Is that Hellfire one word or two?
Two
Okay.
words. Yep.
Yeah.
I think there's another band called Hellfire, one word, but yeah, this is two words. So yeah, they're kind of making a scene. They were just starting to get momentum on their last record, but then obviously now they have to take a break. But yeah, they were definitely one I'm watching for the traditional scene.
Nice.
Yep. Jake, what's your next pick, sir?
All right, so my final track is yet again a Martin Birch produced and engineered
I like it.
Wrathchild from Iron Maiden's Killers album.
Good one.
Power Slave probably for me is still like either that or Peace of Mind are probably my favorite albums from the Maiden era. But
Same.
but Wrathchild, I think that sort of was maybe the best song that Paul Di'Anno did as vocalist, and so I picked that one out. You could still hear because I think that was the first Martin Birch album because he didn't do Iron Maiden, so I think the first one that he did was Killers, and so you could definitely hear though that right there at the beginning that he was setting the tone that would be a through line through many of their future albums.
Yeah, there's a shift between the first one and Killers, definitely.
Yeah, I mean Killers, Iron Maiden definitely felt more like almost like a punk album in a way, like a British
Right.
punk, kind of more like the like the first Def Leppard album, and I'm trying to remember who else was like kind of coming out of that scene around the same time. But all the albums in that same time frame were very much a similar sort of sound, and then Killers broke away, and it really kind of was its own thing.
Yeah, I kind of feel like
Yeah.
those albums, the 1981 albums, are the kind of represent the seam between late 70s, early 80s hard rock, and then what would kind of we would start to call metal, because metal didn't really exist before then. They weren't calling it then, I don't think.
No, I don't think they were.
Later we would go back and start calling albums from 80 and 81 metal. I don't know how much they were then. I don't even think Ozzy was calling themselves metal, back
No.
then during Blizzard of Oz or any of that. So they didn't know how to mix metal because there wasn't metal. You're gonna mix an Iron Maiden album like a Doobie Brothers album. It's probably gonna sound like that. What do I know? I'm not an album producer, but yeah, Killers sounded. I mean, Steve Harris he's been documented as saying how much, but he wishes he could go back and redo the first one just because of how it sounded compared to the second one. And I've never heard him say that about any of the other albums. Well, I didn't hear him say this.
That's
but
because Martin
I read
Birch.
it.
To Jeremy, what's your last old school pick for the week?
Um, Back in the traditional metal vibe, was listening to some old Armored Saint earlier, and went
Okay.
with "Can You Deliver."
Nice.
It's just a fun one. That it can't get loud enough when that song comes on. And it came on in the car, and it's just a little bit more, and
Yeah.
yeah, the production quality on that album is horrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of production, but great song. Love
Hell
Armored
yeah.
Saint, and they're still going. I don't know if people aren't aware. John Bush,
Are they really?
Armored
I had no
Saint.
idea.
Yep, they're going.
Aware.
He was away with Anthrax, and when he went back, he picked up Armored Saint, and I couldn't tell you who's in the band, but I've listened to all the albums, and I like the old stuff best, just because that's what I heard first. But the new ones are fun too, and
Oh, yeah.
fun's the key word. It is fun.
They might show up a little bit later actually on this list.
Nice.
But yeah, hell yeah, that song is John Bush. Just cuts through your speaker stereos. That's another one. Yeah, exactly. That I have to watch out for cops because I started driving too fast. Let's see. So my last old school pick. It's another one's not too old, probably around the same as Hellfire in a few years. But this band is called Tower. They're out of New York, and this song is called "I've Never Been More Alive." And same similar story, traditional heavy metal, new band doing the old school thing, which of course I have a soft spot for, and they're just killing it and doing it right. It's very honest. They're not trying to do old school just to kind of like a wink or tongue in cheek thing. They're really just are trying to write the best kick ass music they can, and so catchy, and the hooks, and I just love songs with big hooks and big choruses, and they got all that, just hooks for days. So definitely go back and check out Tower out of New York if you guys haven't out there. And song is "I've Never Been More Alive," so kicks
It's a
ass.
cool band name.
Yeah,
Tower. I like it.
yeah, they're charismatic. They got everything going. So I'm definitely another band I'm watching. So yes, that's old school picks. That takes us to new tracks. Jake, what's your first of the new tracks this week?
So the first of my new tracks is there's a new band, Firstborn, that is Chris Adler from Lamb of God, their drummer, or
Okay.
ex Lamb of God, I should say.
Yeah.
He's got a new band, and it's made up of. I mean, I wouldn't call it a super group. I mean, I think the bass player played with Megadeth and Black Label Society, and so the song is "Roll the Dice." It's they have a 5-track EP that they dropped the same day as Lamb of God's new album. I think as kind of a fu
Okay.
to Lamb of God, but
Did Chris
funny.
leave on bad terms? I don't really know anything about that.
um, hard to say. I mean, there's so much of that that's feels like artificial drama most of the time.
Sure. Okay.
That's
But
cool.
yeah, the timing was suspiciously similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I
it's
haven't
this
never
song,
heard
and this
it.
track is a really hard driving. It's a good track. Like the whole thing, all 5 songs are pretty solid.
That's
I'll
cool.
check
I'll
that
have to
out.
check it out. Yeah.
Is it a
So,
similar vocal style to
no,
Lamb of God?
no, it's different. It's more of a straight ahead. Like Roll the Dice in particular felt like it could have come off of Too Fast for Love. Only if it
Oh,
was
okay.
produced now. Like
Okay.
it's kind of more of
Okay.
a straight ahead rock and roll.
All right. Hell
Doesn't
yeah.
sound like
I'll
old
check that
guys. It's not too heavy, is it?
out.
No, but
Too
it's
much.
nothing like Lamb of God.
Yeah, I'll check it out. His playing's ridiculous, so well,
Yeah.
hell yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
there's only one track where you really could tell that it's his drumming style, because this is a lot more straight ahead rock and roll across the board. But I think I
Right
can't
on.
remember the name of the last track but the last track is definitely one where you could tell that it's
Goes into beast
his
mode.
drumming style. Yeah,
Right on. Hell yeah.
Well, these all end up on the Heavy Radio podcast playlist on Spotify and I think other places.
Yep,
Um,
yep.
So I'll be certainly checking that out.
Yes, sir.
My first new one, the song is called "Heart in Hand" by Opeth, off their latest one, "In Cauda Venenum," which is Latin. Um, are either you guys Opeth fans?
I'm not
dabbled.
familiar with them.
I have a lot of
Okay.
I have a lot of friends that love them, so I know them through friends.
Okay, yeah, new album. It's their 12th album. They've covered a lot of ground in their territory, starting as a kind of a progressive death metal band, and then
Mm,
going into whatever you call it now. It's some people argue it's not even metal anymore. I disagree. Some there's a it's heavy music. Definitely check it out.
yeah. If it's
There's
heavy,
so
I'll go
much to
for it.
say. Yeah, if you're an instrument, if you enjoy playing any instrument, if you but still like music that's fun to listen to. I like virtuosity as much as anyone else, but some of it kind of leaves me bored because
Hmm.
it's not particularly pleasing to listen to.
Yeah, it can
Every
become
single
a lot of notes.
every
Some
single
of them.
person in this band I think just destroys what it is that they set out to do, but the band as a whole is better for it. It doesn't sound like it caters to one thing. And they don't do any heavy vocals anymore. So if the super heavy stuff is not your thing, Definitely check it out.
I'll have to go back and listen to him because yeah, I guess my whole time listening to music, I've always had friends that just love their stuff and super hyped when new things drop. So I'll have to go and just listen to their music and chill with it a bit. I
Yeah.
probably owe it to do that. Well, that's cool, man. I'm glad they're putting out some new stuff. Um, my first new track, like I said, Armored Saint, they're back now. So
Nice.
they have a new song called "End of the Attention Span." That's very John Bush title.
Yep.
And he still sounds fucking great, and it just made me like happy when I heard it. It was a surprise for me. They had a new one come out, and this just dropped like days ago. So, yeah, I was excited. It sounds like Armored Saint. The production's great. They're ripping riffs are old school. His voice sounds great. So if you just want some classic Armored Saint, sounds like they got it for you. So I'm sure an album is not far behind. This was just a single that came out, so I'm excited to hear more.
Awesome. Yeah, me too. The newer Armored Saint stuff does sound great. The production's awesome. It's just that
His
old
voice
one.
his voice just gets to me, man. I saw him live, and they did with Anthrax, and he did on. I'm sure I talked about it before, but they did Antisocial, and Mark and I got almost to the front of the stage, and he was like just screaming in our face to say Antisocial, and we weren't doing it loud enough as an audience, and when they finally kicked off the song, like we were just all amped and moshing, and and like boots are like flying because somebody's crowd surfing. You have to watch out for people taking your head off, and it was just that vibe. So
Awesome.
good times. Back to you, Jake. Your last new track for the week.
So my final track for the week, a band called Haunt out of Fresno. They're more of a regional band.
I know them.
They have a song called "Burst into Flames" that is a fun. That kind of like completes my Martin Birch tie-in. He did not produce them, but they sound very very inspired by Iron Maiden. I saw them live here. That was actually the first time I ever had even heard of them. I saw them playing a live show here in Santa Cruz, and they have like this kind of cross between Iron Maiden and early Megadeth vibe going on, and they were a lot of fun to watch live. And
That sounds like a can't miss.
yeah,
great.
yeah. The production on the overall album, I think, has room for improvement. Kind of similar to what you're talking about the early Metal Blade records. I think across the board, but
It's very DIY.
yeah. And I think that's like the Armored Saint through line for that is like Metal Blade. They just like had lots of horribly produced albums, but
Yeah, but if they didn't put them out, who would have?
yeah, exactly. So Haunt is definitely worth a listen for anybody that's a metal fan. And if they come to your town when we can actually all leave our houses and go places again, go check them out.
Yeah, they're awesome. I got into them maybe a year or two ago, and yeah, I've been a fan since, and just excited about everything they drop. Like their last album, full album, I felt like was a jump in sound for them, just all the way around, not just production, but like songwriting and structure and choruses and everything. I feel like they really have been stepping up, and I'm excited to see them getting more and more attention. So yeah, I'll back that up. They kick a lot of ass. So
Yeah,
hell yeah.
their singer and guitar, I mean, like I think he's like the guy that pretty much writes everything. I think he is like kind of the Dave Mustaine of that band, I think. But he
I'm looking forward to that. They've got an album a year for the last 3 years.
Yeah, they drop them like once a year. Yeah.
But he's also played on a bunch of other stuff because like it'll pop up. He'll be like, "Hey, I just recorded drums on this album over here. Go check it out." So he's like super prolific.
It's one of those cats. Yeah. Hell yeah.
Sweet.
Jeremy, your last track for the week.
My last one is by Night Demon, called Empire's Fall. They've got a new EP out, speaking of EPs, called Visteria, or Visteria. I'm not sure what that word means. But Night Demon, again, in the traditional metal category. I'd never heard of them. They played in town. I instantly loved them. They're a 3-piece, just tons of energy. Loved it. Been following them since. And this just came
they
out.
rip. Hell yeah.
Empire's Fall. Came out in July.
Yeah, hell yeah. Those guys tear it up, man. They're another band I watch, always pay attention to. Hell yeah. My last pick for the week is a band called Venom Prison, and the song is called Damon Vulgaris. And It's more a modern band. Brutal vocals. The tones, the guitar tones are rad. Drum tones, just huge sounding band. Super aggressive. This is another band to put on if you want the walls to start shaking. I just like the aggression. Sometimes you just want that stuff that's just screaming in your face metal. If you're like go for a run or jump on the treadmill and just need stuff, or lift weights, you just need some shit to amp you up. Like that's the kind of band this is. So new to me. I just saw the song dropped, so I checked it out of curiosity. I just liked the name of the band, so I checked them out and was happy to see it kicked ass. So definitely go check those guys out.
I've heard of them. I've seen them on Instagram. I came across some of their posts from I think one of their guitar players, and have gone back and forth with him a little bit, just on some interesting posts that he made, and listened to some of their stuff. It's definitely kind of extreme. It's kind of unique sounding. It's yeah, I've been meaning to go back and listen to them some more too. Where did you see that at? Out of curiosity.
That just came through on Spotify on new metal releases for the week.
Okay.
So I just clicked on it. I just thought the name was cool. I was like, what's this about? So I was like,
Yeah,
okay.
It is a cool name.
Yeah. So, hell yeah. Well, dudes, that'll wrap up our episode. Jake, I want to thank you for coming on the show, man, and making time for us.
Sure,
and,
definitely. Thank you.
This has been fun.
Hell yeah, man. Welcome back anytime. And Jeremy, thanks for coming back again.
Right on. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you back. And Marco, to wherever you may be, parts unknown for wrestling fans out there. We'll be seeing him next time, I'm sure. But to everybody out there listening, check us out on iTunes, Google, YouTube, anywhere you get your podcasts. Our playlist is on Spotify. Like Jeremy said, the Heavy Radio Podcast playlist. Search for that. And also, Marco has our playlist going up on YouTube, so check out the music. But thanks, guys, for coming on the show. Thank you for all you guys listening, and we will talk to you next time. Bye.
Thank you.